We're Eric, Chandra, and Pooh Bear, and this is our bus Bonnie. In June of 2020, after years of dreaming of full-time travel, we brought home a school bus to convert into a completely custom tiny home on wheels. At 10 months in and a goal of being road ready by the end of the summer, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Today we tackle a project we've never seen anywhere before, custom windows. Here's part 2, creating studs, cutting glass, and making frames. We're back at the bus. Got all the material for the rest of the 7 windows, and we are going to cut all of the wood for the frames, and then if we have time, we're gonna cut the interior frames as well. And then once all the pieces are cut and they need to be waterproofed, I'm just gonna bring them home and waterproof them at home because I don't feel like being in the cold. Got a new generator. It's like 130 pounds or something like that. Super heavy. So we're currently ripping the seal out of the windows that we already sealed. And unfortunately we did a really good job at it, so it's really hard. And some of the windows are like sealed on the inside and sealed on the outside, and it's pretty tough. We only have 1 out right now.
2.
Oh my gosh, 2. So pretty much our method is to take the razor, cut around all of the edges of the seal, get the spatula in there, or scraper or whatever, and like just peel away at it. And then once the window gets freed, you can kind of either hammer it out or just pull it out. This is the window that's double sealed on the inside and on the outside, so it's twice as hard. So right now we are working on wood filling and sanding all of the pieces for the frames. We basically wood fill and then sand with 80 grit, and then once that's done we sand the entire pieces down with 400 grit. So now we're gonna jump back a little bit because I realized I forgot to put in information for how I waterproofed the frames. So before we jumped into doing all of the 7 windows remaining, we did do 1 trial window to make sure that everything we were doing was right, and kind of trial and error with some different products and stuff. That does include the water proofing of the frames. So if you saw the previous video, you saw that we attempted to use this Varathane. That didn't work out because it ended up being too thick and too sticky, taking too long to dry. It just didn't end up working for what we were wanting. So we did end up getting this, which was actually more of like a waterproofing. It was much thinner than that, than the Varathane was. It is called Olympic WaterGuard. I think it's supposed to be for like decks and stuff like that, so we figured that that would work best. It's much thinner, it was easier to work with, didn't take so long to dry, and I was able to do multiple coats within a short period of time. My first attempt was with a stain and sealer in 1, and I chose what I thought was going to end up being kind of like a light brown color, and it ended up being orange like this, and that's not what we were going for. So I returned that and exchanged it for the clear version, which ended up going perfect. It just went on clear and was exactly what we were looking for. So what we're doing right now is screwing in the studs for the window. We're just using the original screws from the exterior of the bus, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. So this is the little stud. We have these covers between our windows, and they're just held in with screws. So we just took out those screws, put the stud in there, and put the original screws back in.
And it's important for you to tap the holes first. So this is an 1/8 inch drill bit. Make sure you create create those holes first, so that way the wood doesn't crack, because it's really thin. And if you try and shove a really thick screw into it, it's gonna crack.
We're done for the day. We finished putting all the studs in the windows, and we put together 3 frames, I think. But a lot of today was just measuring and cutting the studs and cleaning out the silicone on the windowsills. This morning Eric got a haircut this morning, and he looks fancy. Eric's eating breakfast, and then we're gonna go to the bus, and Eric's gonna work while I keep working on the windows. So there's our first window. Looks good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been raining these past few days, so we haven't had any leaks. The sealant that we put over it is holding up really well, and yeah, pretty good.
We're gonna finish cutting the last 2 pieces of glass for the windows. So as far as actually putting the frames for the windows together, this is what we've got going on. Basically, we're just starting with 1 piece, gripping it, and then putting the screws in the sides. I have to adjust for this one, but we're literally just screwing them together, all the pieces. So I just finished screwing together the last frame, and they look pretty good so far. These are all of our frames. There's 1 frame that got this weird little thing that we're gonna have to deal with. That's not done yet, but all the frames are done. And they look pretty good. So now I'm gonna move on to taking that and starting the awful task of cutting the glass. So basically the way we've been doing it is we're only able to cut 2 windows out of each sheet. So what we did was we took the sheet and marked the windows out of opposite sides of the sheet. So the whole middle is scrap essentially. And then what we're doing is cutting lines all the way from the top of the sheet to the bottom of the sheet so that you get 3 sections, and then taking that part and cutting the excess off. So the first time we tried to do this, we did it completely incorrect. We folded this line on the edge of this tabletop and tried to push down on 1 corner.
And it didn't go along the seam.
Like, looking back at the footage, we realized it was awful, and that's why we ended up with this crooked spare piece that we have now. But it's okay, because, you know, trial and error.
It's an expensive trial and error.
Yeah, these sheets are about $130. They're not cheap.
So what I do is I hop on top of the sheet and I'll spread my knees a little bit so that way I cover the edges. And then I put my hand on the straight edge. And then grab it. There you go. So, as you can see, it broke, but it broke right along the line that we had cut. This is exactly where it needs to be. So, cut the other end, and peel it off.
Here's your sheet.
I got a perfectly straight line.
We still need to cut off this. Let's see. Oh, look at that thing. Have to take a little break to go pick up my brother. And then we will go back to the bus. But cutting that glass really sucks. Does it suck as much as I think it sucks, or does it just...
It doesn't suck that much.
I'm just being dramatic, I guess. I don't like to cut it. And it takes a long time, and it just isn't fun. That's kind of the whole process with the windows, I feel like. Each little step is a long step in itself.
Sometimes it'd be like that.
Sometimes it'd just be like that. Back at the bus now. All the glass is cut. Moving on to pilot holes in the frames. So I'm taking a moment to decompress and what happened was I finished cutting all the glass. I took the glass, matched it with the corresponding frame, took the windows out of the bus, and made sure that the frame and the glass fit in the window. And we have specific frames and specific pieces of glass, plexiglass, whatever you want to call it, for each window. They're labeled, they're specific, just in case for some reason the windows aren't all the same size, that they would fit. So to backtrack a little bit, the glass sheets that you go to Home Depot and you buy come from the manufacturer with a lip around the edge. So when you're taking the frame and you're lining it up on the glass and tracing it, the frame goes inside the lip a little bit. So now we have that lip, which makes every piece of glass just a tidge too big. So it's very frustrating because I spent all day doing this and now none of them fit. Eric says that we can probably sand them all down and get them to fit. I don't know. We'll see if that works. Okay, today is coming to an end, and all we did was get the glass cut. You can see the sunset back there. Finally, we got all the glass cut properly fitting. We sanded it all down and everything. So here is what it looks like. All of the clear film is still on there, so obviously it's going to be clear afterward. But we just set the frames in there and set the glass in there to get a look for what it's gonna look like, and it looks pretty cool.